Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Curry, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. In the lead up to Scream 7, I couldn't be more grateful for everybody out there who listens to the show, who supports my podcast here, listening every episode, or on social media on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. If you would like to become a member of the podcast, come to the group Zooms, be on the show on a one-on-one or small group setting, consider joining the Patreon with Scream with Ryan C. Showers. In addition to the benefits of coming on the podcast, you can also join our social media groups, in particular on Instagram. That's the main hub of the podcast. I also do a monthly audio commentary of a Scream movie or a Scream-related film. From now through April, we are going to be having a new Scream movie audio commentary. So if you would like to hear my thoughts in an audio commentary form in the style of Wes Craven, Marion Maddalena, et al. Of the original trilogy, please consider subscribing and supporting the show. Thank you to every single person out there who subscribes on Patreon. Specifically, I need to thank my Daddy Ghost Faces and Stab investors over at Patreon. Starting out strong, we have Carrie Tenney, our Mama Ghostface, Corey Wilson, and Brett Janovich. And then we have Kevin Abner, Ali, Roy Garza, Josh Carr, Mark Rim, PWO5, Gustavo Mora, Mark Vieira, Scream Queens Podcast, both Josh and Justine, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, The Horror Project Podcast, David D., Jess Mariano, Sam Levy, Tamika Jones, Josh Calamari, and Andrew Dominguez. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. This is the final episode of the year of 2025, and it's the last time, really, after this, we're going to be in the year of Scream 7, which is so cool. So to ring in the end of 2025 with me, I have invited somebody who was a big part of the podcast a while ago. He hasn't been on the podcast in a while, but I'm thrilled to have him back. So everyone, please welcome my friend, Zack Cherry. Hey, Zack Cherry.
Hey, Ryan Showers. Ryan C. Showers.
Yeah, you should have said, hey, Scream with Ryan C. Showers. So I don't know.
Do you want us to do it over?
No, let's do it. Let's keep it going.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, well, you were just telling me before we started that the last time was March 2024.
Yeah.
Does not feel like it.
Yeah. So the last episode we did was this really cool episode, and people loved it. We did this topic about what are the themes of each of the Scream movies, or what's the sub theme.
I think since the last time I was on, I've always been kind of sour on 6, but I've really reappraised my opinion of 5 as well. So just if people were mad before about my opinions, get ready.
I think the way that people see you and me is they see us, Ryan and Zack, as the people who took on Scream 6 and who really popped the bubble of Scream 6 in terms of people's blind love for it at the time, or blind enjoyment of it. And that we are responsible for showing that it's a flawed thing. And for that reason, a lot of the Amber stands, as we used to call them years ago, don't love us, but that's fine because, taste.
I mean, I think that a lot of people had their opinions about the movie at the time. It's just that, we have more of a platform, that there are more people listening, so it would seem like it, that it's just the hate is radiating off of us. But I did find a lot of people who initially really liked Scream 6 and 5, just afterwards, maybe a year or so later, just really started to think about the rewatchability and just how there really isn't any, and reappraised their opinion based off of that.
Well, and I think that that's definitely true. And I think that do you feel that back then there was almost this forced positivity about those movies, about 5 and 6? We were kind of in the culture, everybody was excited for 5 when it came out, and we're just so grateful to have Scream back that it was we were all trying to see the best in Scream 5 and kind of Scream 6, but Scream 6 I feel like pretty like not maybe not immediately, but soon after, I think you and I kind of started like really poking holes in it, and then after events happened and we kind of repositioned for the real Scream 7, I've just noticed that like a lot of people, they're not faking it anymore. They're, and in terms of like seeing 5 and 6 for maybe what they are.
I mean, I think that that's something that could be applied in a broader sense, just like over the entire film industry right now. And I think it, started before 5 and 6, because there's certainly movies in the late 2000s and 10s that, this was an issue. But it really, like post-COVID, I find is when it kind of became more present. And that's just this positivity of just like the genre, really, of just like a lot of what I feel are just like mediocre films. And I say mediocre with a caveat because I don't think that these are movies that are bad or that the people who are attached to them are doing a bad job or are just not skilled. It's just that the industry itself and the people who have the money and are putting it into these movies clearly are cutting a lot of corners and don't care about a lot of things. So, we see that in the screenwriting process and how so many stories are just not developed properly enough, or things are being rushed out, or it's just sort of like more about quantity over quality. And, just by the very nature of Scream 5 and 6 coming out in this period of time, I think that was part of it, where like people are just like, no, this, like, let's be positive and look at all this great stuff. And I feel like now there's kind of a shift coming because, like, as we're recording this, there's the news that Netflix is wanting to buy out Warner Brothers, and now like Paramount wants like to have a hostile bid in there. So it's really coming to the forefront that like the industry is in trouble and people are not happy. And a lot of the products that we've been seeing, such as Screams 5 and 6, are a direct result of that complacency and just sort of this attitude that things don't have to be good. They just have to appeal the lowest common denominator, or just like tick all the boxes at the bare minimum. So yeah, that's definitely a problem that, can be attributed to Scream 5 and 6. And I really hope that, with where we're at and just sort of people pushing back, that things will change.
Well, the thing is, I feel like we kind of we haven't really done an episode really since it was announced that Nev was coming back officially, and Kevin hasn't. Nev and Kevin, like them as a combo, that they were taking charge of Scream 7. I mean, that's how long it's been, which is way too long. But I do want to hear what you've been up to, of course, but just you referenced the fact that you have reappraised Scream 5 and 6. So why don't you hit me with your ranking and kind of, a soft explanation of where you stand with each of these 6 movies?
Yeah, I think my ranking is the same. I mean, I don't know what the last time I ranked them with you, but I'm very much of the opinion that like the first 3 are the supremacy of, like just like the Wes Craven supremacy. I would actually say that 2 is my favorite. I love the original, but for me, the sequel just does everything at just like exactly what Randy says in it. It's just like the set pieces are more elaborate. Everything about it, like there's just more suspense involved. It's more exciting. I feel that the character arcs are deeper, especially Gale. Like Scream 2 will always be Gale's movie at its core. And I just love the college setting. I think that I've heard a lot of opinions about Scream 2 that are just like, call it the worst in the franchise, or that it's long or boring. And I mean, to each their own. I don't really understand that. But one criticism that I've heard about Scream 2 that I just absolutely do not understand, and nobody has like satisfactorily made me understand why they say this, but the opinion is that it's just a retread of the first movie, and it just does everything the first movie does. And I think that, at least of the Wes Craven movies, I feel that 2 is the outlier in the sense that it feels the most different. Like it's not really repeating a lot of the beats that we see in the first movie.
Can I just jump in here about Scream 2? Because so it's funny you mentioned this and the idea of flaws, because I am actually preparing to do a recording tomorrow where I'm going to be talking about like what's my number 1 flaw in each of the 6 films. And for Scream 6, that was hard to narrow down, right? But and I definitely have one for Scream 1 and I have one for Scream 3, even though I love them to death. But for Scream 2, I don't really have a real genuine flaw that I can point to that is an objective, provable kind of thing, or even like a truly subjective like thing that I can argue strongly as a flaw. Like it's pretty perfect in a lot of respects. Even like the length, I don't really see the length as a problem. And I don't know. And like to say that it's too like a retread of the original, I think is ridiculous. I think the Scream 2 is so different from Scream 1 in pretty much every sense. Like, so I've been dealing with like the finales of like Scream 1 and Scream 2 recently. People have heard me cover the Scream 1 finale by now. So I've been talking about them individually, like together, comparing them. And, I have to say, they are polar opposites in every respect. The approach, like, the epic scope of the Scream 2 finale, the extended length of the Scream 2 finale versus like Scream 1 is so intimate. All the three characters are practically touching each other. Like it's completely the opposite. And like Scream 2, I think benefits from like you said, more specific, deeper character work, but also like it's longer action versus like Scream 1 is so dialogue heavy with like the plot and the backstory. They're just completely different movies. I think that's completely ridiculous. That's a completely ridiculous thing to say, is that Scream 2 is a retread.
There's definitely like, I think of all the finales, Scream 2 definitely has like a lot of moving parts. Like it's so malleable in that like you're watching one movie at 1 second and then suddenly there's a twist or a redirection within the scene, whether that is Mickey or Mrs. Loomis coming at her caught and weary. So it's just like it's constantly changing, and I feel like that like it feels like it's really like quick paced. You're the time master, so I don't know how long the actual scene is, but actually,
I think it's like 20 minutes actually.
Wow.
Scream 1 and Scream 3, they each are 14 minutes in terms of like the length of the finale. I think Scream 2 is 20. So it's definitely longer, and it feels longer when you're watching it. Like I feel like we see so much of Sydney in different shapes and forms in that finale.
Yeah.
Whereas Scream 1 and 3, I guess, it feels like one continuous loop, whereas Scream 2, the finale to me almost feels like different chapters. There's like the Derek chapter, there's the Mickey chapter, there's the Nancy chapter, then there's the Cotton chapter. I don't know.
It's also just so quotable. Like that's the thing. There's many great lines in the Scream 1 finale. I don't know why I call it the Scream 1, like the Scream finale. It's Scream. But I don't know, like I can probably recite Mickey's entire monologue. Like things like that. Like I think that Mickey and Mrs. Loomis, like they're my favorites. And I know that's not everyone's opinion, but I just feel like as a duo, like Billy and Stu and Mickey and Mrs. Loomis are just like, they work so well together. I don't feel that any of the later sequels where there's been more than one killer, that there was really a lot of purpose or intention behind what the relationship was. I never felt that we really got a sense of like who these people were. Like I think, Jill and Charlie, we understand them, but Charlie is so inconsequential once Jill kind of reveals like, they have their plan together and then she had her own. And just like with Richie and Amber, I really feel like that's a missed opportunity in 5 because it's I wanted to know more about them. Like I felt that was so lacking, like other than just saying we met on a Reddit thread or whatever. And then 6 is just, I'm not going to get into it, but sorry, Corinne, so far away. You asked the rankings. 2 is at the top for me, then Scream 1, and that's like not a very wide margin. They're very close together. Scream 3 after that. You've actually played a large role in like reshaping my opinion of Scream 3 because I just have such a good time with that movie. And even though the flaws exist in it, which I haven't changed my opinion on those, I accept them more because it's just like the movie is so well put together, and considering all of the struggles that they faced during production, it's just a miracle that the movie turned out the way that it did and that it turned out as good as it did. After that would be Scream 4. And this is like where it dips down a little for me. I much prefer, like, if you can find a version of Scream 4 that has the extended and alternate and deleted scenes kind of quilted back in, I think that that's the preferred way to watch it because I think it works better with the pacing. It doesn't feel so rushed in certain places, and it gives a little bit more context to some of the characters. And it also makes things make more sense as well. I just find that one, I mean, it definitely, you can sense the studio meddling. And even though the film looks not great because of, like the filter, as we call it, I still enjoy it. There are things that I can take away from it and just be like, okay, this is really entertaining. And I like that. After that would be 5. And this is another drop down for me, quite a big drop. And I just think that I just find it so boring. I
Yeah.
find the look of it to be just so basic. This is a problem that I have with a lot of modern cinema where it just doesn't have a filmic scope to it. There's not a lot of wide shots in the movie. Like everything is shot up really close. And it's, the lens work that they do, like everything is so blurry in the background. It's just, this is not something that's just exclusive to Scream 5 and 6. It's in everything that we see now. Whereas like Wes Craven would treat the entire, like everything that was on the screen with so much reverence, because it's just like, this is an environment. There's a feeling to what Woodsboro is, especially like in the first movie or Windsor College or Hollywood, where it's just like, we're not just looking at 25% of the screen of where a character is. Like we're looking into deep backgrounds. We want to see detail. We want to feel that this is a real world, because it is.
Yeah.
And with 5, it's just like everything it just feels kind of cheap to me. I don't like the set for the house at the end. Like I wish that they had gone back to the original location. I understand that obviously like budgets are a huge thing with these movies, but even then, like this is what Wes Craven as a director pushed for. It just like, no, like we need this and this is the reason why we need this. So there's, so much attention to detail that was just missing there. And I just think the script is bad. I am as a character. There was definitely a trajectory that I feel like was set up with Scream 5, and then they just sort of dropped the ball in Scream 6 because they just did the same. That is a movie where they did the same thing over, actually, for 5. But I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the characters as much. I think that if they were going to go a route with Billy Loomis's daughter, like they should have committed to that in a way that, was more interesting, or just, like not try to just emulate visually the set pieces or environments from the first movie. And then with 6, I mean, it's been said all over, like that came out in like a year. Compare that to like Scream 2 that came out a year later, where there was so much artistic direction and production design and just like, and even though they like reworked that story so much in that year, compare it to what Scream 6 is, and it's just a series of set pieces. Like there's no connective tissue. It's just like every scene can be described as, and then this happens, rather than this happens, therefore this happens. So you could literally go from the start of the movie to the end of the movie, and you didn't need all that junk in between. All it is just sort of like exciting action, I guess. And I think that's where people are starting to be like, well, we've seen this. Like, there's not really anything deeper to it.
Okay, well, so I like your ranking. I really appreciate what you said about Scream 3. So I have a question. Before we get to the trailer for Scream 7, I want to go through the speedrun questions, but even before the speedrun questions, because they are new. So these have been updated slightly since you've been on. But where do you predict Scream 7 is going to fall in your ranking, if you had to take a wild guess, before or after Scream 4?
Yeah, this is really hard because I don't like to rank things that I don't know.
It's a prediction, Zach.
Well, it's not so much as a prediction as like wishful thinking. So I'll say that this is based off of wishful thinking. I would be happy if it falls 5th, like after Scream 4. So as long as it can satisfy me more than Screams 5 and 6 did.
I think that it will, and here's hoping. So, okay, cool. All right, well, before we talk about the 7 trailer and where you kind of stand with Scream 7, because, even though you and I kind of take a different approach to Scream 7, which is fine, and I want to hear where you're coming from with Scream 7, I think it's important. So, but before then, let us do the speedrun questions. Okay, so Sydney, Gail, or Ty?
Like a tie between the both? Okay, I'm just like, is there a new character named Ty? Sydney.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Sydney. All right. Sam or Tara?
Sam.
Okay. Dewey or Chad?
Dewey.
Favorite movie buff across the franchise?
If Scream 6 didn't exist, it would be Kirby. So we're going to go with Randy.
Okay. Fair enough. Favorite killer?
Mickey.
Over Mrs. Loomis. Okay, cool. I like it.
I mean, it could go either way, depending on it. Mickey's so much fun.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that Mickey, the reason why, like, Mrs. Loomis is fabulous, but Mickey to me has always just been the most diabolical. Like, she calls him a piece of shit and all that, but like his words resonated with her, like it affected her life, and has affected it, like, probably as right into Scream 7 as well.
Yeah. All right. Favorite opening and favorite finale?
I mean, Scream 1 is the best opening, and finales. I mean, now that we just talked about it
Yeah.
5 minutes ago, I might say Scream 2.
Besides Casey Becker, what is your favorite scene in the franchise?
It's really hard to pick just one, but something that's like really been resonating with me a lot lately is the entirety of the scene in Scream 1 where Sydney comes home after school, like that, her whole attack, but just like everything from like getting off of the school bus, like up until Kenny out in front of the house. I mean, you know, even if you want to end it with her opening the door to find Dewey, but there's just something about that location and the way that Wes films it. Like we're talking about like these deep background shots and just seeing the rolling hills behind her and just how that really emphasizes the isolation and that, okay, the killer could be anywhere. Even the way that like the house that they use and the way that Wes has it shot inside of the house where it feels very modern. Like I love just like houses like that and just how it even feels within that there's just so much space around her that even like during the daytime bits, it could feel claustrophobic in a way.
Favorite kill or death in the franchise?
I don't know why, but I'm just like drawing a blank right now. I'm going to say, you know what? Just off the top of my head, Cece.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
Zack Cherry makes a video of a tier list ranking every single death. Also, Zack Cherry, I'm drawing a blank here.
I mean, that was so long ago. Like I just, you know, this speed round, you caught me off guard.
I know. All right. Favorite supporting role across the franchise?
Wow, this is tough. Okay. You know what? My mind went to Jennifer. So,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. Yay or nay on Scream the TV series? I don't think we've ever talked about the TV series.
Nay, it just wasn't for me.
What is your favorite thing about Scream?
I think that, and it's Wes Craven. Like my favorite thing about Scream, but just his attention to detail. Like I said already, like I can watch specifically the first 3 movies, and like I've seen them. I don't even know how many times, but every time I watch them, I find new details. I pick up something new, and even if I don't pick up something new, it doesn't mean that I'm not like there are no more things left to find. Because like I'm surprised sometimes. Like that might be just like the costume choices and just sort of like what they represent psychologically for the characters or where they're at in their life or what a certain scene is trying to do. And that just like really kind of showcases how much creativity went into every decision that was made. Yeah, that's not really like when I watch 5 and 6 now, like I feel like I'm done. Like there's nothing new to learn from those ones.
I feel that especially about Scream 6. Like I just feel so like over Scream 6 like in every way. Like there's nothing like there's no imagination to Scream 6. Like I don't even find it that entertaining. I find it so frustrating on a philosophical level, on an intellectual level.
Yeah, and a logic level too.
Well, so in 3 weeks, I am going to be doing an episode covering comments made by Skeet Ulrich a couple of weeks ago, where he talked about Sam Carpenter, that the theme of her trilogy, or what they were intending to do for Scream 7, was that it was going to be about Billy Loomis turning his daughter into the Ghostface Killer. And as people know, as you may remember, my least favorite thing, besides the treatment of Gale Weathers and the character assassination thereof, was Sam Carpenter wearing Billy's robe at the end and kind of having this weird, I call it a fetish just to be a dick, but like this weird inclination, passion for murdering people and an enjoyment that she has for killing people that's characterized through her conversation with her therapist, which is such a ridiculous thing in and of itself. Her putting her hand up to the glass in the shrine. And then, of course, the glee on her face when she's stabbing Ethan. And, of course, the big climax with Detective Bailey, where she puts on Billy's robe and plays dress up and gets her jive on. So I find that to be, I've always found that to be disgusting. I dislike it so much for so many reasons, but this kind of confirms that, what Skeet says lines up with where Scream 6 went with her. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Skeet's comments?
I'm, of 2 minds here. I think that the way that it had been established at that point, I think it would have been a horrible twist because I don't think that they did the work to set it up. Sam actually being the killer, I might have actually enjoyed that. I think that there were definitely moments throughout 5 and 6, especially 6, where they could have leaned into something to really kind of hint at something, or just like, get the ball rolling in terms of a clue that might have paid off in this eventual scenario in Scream 7. I think that the fact that the mother was completely AWOL was a huge mistake. Like, it's fine that she was gone in 5. They could have done that, but she absolutely needed to be a presence in 6, or, even if she was off screen, like, there needed to be more meat to her role in their lives, rather than just sort of like a throwaway, like, yeah, she's turned against Tara because Tara turned against her, whatever it was. I think that there's actually, it's almost like, in Scream 3, when Gail is doing her digging and she's like, Maureen disappeared from Woodsboro for X number of years. No one knows what happened to her life. There was an opportunity to kind of do something like that with Sam, because Sam disappeared from Woodsboro for 5 years. And that was something that was established in Scream 5. And it was almost like they forgot about it, because I think that could have been the key to the mystery of just like what happened in Sam's life in those 5 years, because I can't see a scenario where Sam is just sort of like killing people willy-nilly because, she gets, a kick out of it or whatever. Like, I would need some sort of personal motivation for her, or like what is driving her. And even if it's just sort of like an urgency on her end to cover up something in her past that she does not want to get out there, especially people who are closest to her, like Tara. I think that would have been very interesting to find that out, that, like the character that we think that we know, we don't even know, and that she's willing to go to extremes to preserve her image in a way. And something that happened that you mentioned, the whole killing of Bailey. I think that the fact that she, she's already stabbed him like however many times she does, and then pulls off the mask and Tara comes out and she's kind of looks at her, like Tara's like looking at her like you're a monster almost. Like, I don't know what the direction was, or, what they were trying to get out of the performances here, but it was almost like there was this possibility that it's just like, you're freaking me out. I don't know what you're doing right now. And that's why Sam stops and she's just like, I'm not a murderer. I'm not like that. And then Tara's just like kind of shrugs her shoulder. It's like, eh. And Sam says, but you fucked with my family, so you gotta die. And it's like, I feel like that's unrealistic. Like, especially if you compare it to something like with Sydney in Scream 2, of her just like cold-blooded, like shooting Mrs. Loomis after she's already dead, but just in case sort of thing. Like, that is growth for that character. That's sort of like, she's becoming a survivor. Here, it just feels like, not to throw this word around loosely, but cunty. It's just like, yeah, we're divas, and like, we're gonna abandon our scruples just for like a gag, like what essentially turns out to be a laugh. And I think that what would have been really interesting is for Tara to have retained that like kind of like fear of Sam, of just like who she was, and for Sam to kill Bailey, but then that be something that, like they have to lie about afterwards. Like, the police come in and it's just like, no, I killed him in self-defense. Because at that point, it's not self-defense. It's like, it's overkill. And, of course, like in a court of law, like any sort of argument can be made. But if like, let's just say if Sam followed the trajectory of Sydney in Scream 4, and she started writing books about her experiences. If Sam had written that would be so interesting if she wrote about it, but lied about like what had happened, and Tara's the only one that knows, and now that's her burden.
Well, here's my thing about it too. Like, I agree with everything that you said, but like, I just want to like add on here. Like, the problem I have with it is twofold. One, the film is trying to portray Sam as a hero, or as like she's the person we are supposed to be cheering on and identifying with. And in that moment, even in that moment, like, I feel like the film is trying to have it both ways, but not in the smart way, like in kind of like the accidental, like, oops, lazy way. Even how you just described Tara's reaction and Tara's acceptance of that, like, there's almost like this, like, what she did was okay, or what she did is something that we should be cheering on. And that's what I don't like. I don't like that nihilism. I don't think that is Scream. And there's no consequence. There's no real world thinking about what Sam did. And I think what you said, like, even if like the film would have ended like on a chilly note with Sam and Tara, as opposed to like Sam stabbing somebody 43 times, wearing her, it's just so ridiculous and sick and stupid. She wears her serial killer father's robe to carry out a death where she stabs someone 43 times. And then we're supposed to think that she's still our hero, that we're still on her side, like, because that's the way the film kind of pushes it. And then the way that the film follows up with Sam and Tara having the cute sister conversation, like, it's just so many mixed messages, but not in the way that's like, not in the way that the film knows that it's sending mixed messages. Like, there's a way for a movie to be in on the fact that, like, this person is different shades, but the movie is never pushing that. It's trying to give us that edgy, cunty killer, but also still have her be our hero. And that's where it's a problem for me. And I think, like, ending it on a chilly note where Tara is at odds with Sam would have been a better use of the film's time. But I don't think Scream 6 was ever interested in actually holding characters accountable or holding them to standards of reality in the same way that the original trilogy did. Like, just think about the way that where the trio is left in Scream 2. In sandwiched between 1 and 3, and that's the complete opposite of.
Well, there's an arc for like Gail, especially, of just sort of like how that transforms her, and I feel that, with Sam, the movie doesn't know what it's doing. Like, that's why I feel like anytime there is a character moment with her, it's just sort of filler, because it's just like there is no finite ending to this arc. It's a judgment on the writing, because it's just the writing is unsure of itself. The writing, it does not know what it wants to do with this character. If they want to have her like lean into that and have her kill Bailey by stabbing him 43 times, abso-fucking-lutely, go for it. I am not judging Sam for that. I am judging the writing for the fact that they do that, but they're not actually like following through with like the gravity of that situation, or what that might have, like the consequences that might have on the psyche of these characters. And it just feels like it just becomes a joke in the end, because I've seen the Twitter responses, like anytime like you bring up a criticism about this specific moment, and then it's like, you're justifying these killers and what they did to this poor girl and blah blah blah. I'm like, grow up, like, listen to, like, read between the lines here. It's just like the text is very obvious, but yeah, it's the writing has done no favors to this character.
Okay, so moving on now, we are leaving the original idea for Scream 7, which is Sam as Ghostface, and now leaving that in the past and entering the real Scream 7, which is Sydney Prescott and her daughter, Tatum Evans. So the trailer came out in late October. Zach, what did you think of the trailer?
I didn't like it.
Okay.
I will say that I'm really excited for Neve Campbell. Like, not just like personally for, her to be back here, but I'm excited to see Sydney again. I think that, I feel that her story was very much complete with Scream 3, and that it is kind of difficult to bring her back in a way, or just find new ways to like who's coming after her now? Like, what could the possibility be? She's kind of run the gamut with people coming after her, but we haven't seen her as a mother. We haven't seen that side of her character. I can make an excuse for that. That's just like, there are more stories to tell with her, and to see her in this capacity is something that we haven't seen before. So there is a fresh take on it. So where Sydney is concerned, I'm really interested of what happens with her, or where she's at in her life, or how they, just all the character growth that she's gone through, and to see what's next for her. I'm not really a fan of the aesthetic of the movie. I feel like, and again, this has nothing to do with Scream. This is just sort of where the industry is in general, of just like how films just like it just looks kind of washed out to me. It doesn't have that color pop that Screams 1 to 3 do. It doesn't have that filmic quality to it. It's just sort of like the lenses that they're using, where everything is still so like deep focus in the foreground, even like down to character designs. Like, I'm not crazy about Sydney's look in the movie too, and I should say this is not anything to do with It's not a shallow sentiment. It's more of just like what I was talking about before with Wes Craven, and just like attention to detail with wardrobe and hair and all these things. Like, there's a way to like really kind of separate all of your characters to make them stand out, or just sort of like link it to like who they are in terms of their personality or psychology. Now, granted, like, I'll have to wait till I see the film itself, but just like the trailer just wasn't, it just wasn't connecting with me aesthetically.
No, I appreciate your perspective here. So do you think that like the coloring that you're that you have issue with, and here's the thing, like on some level, I kind of agree. I think that the trailer doesn't look. I think that honestly, like just visually, I think the trailer for Scream 6 looked better in terms of like the colors. And I don't know why, I don't, but at the same time, I think that this could just be a trailer thing. It may look great. It may look natural. The thing that I like about the trailer compared to 5 and 6 is like this feels like the production to me feels full again. It feels like we're actually in a real location, which obviously we are. We're in a outdoor exterior neighborhood, a real house. And I think that all those details really come through in the trailer. And I'm excited about that because that's something that like, it is so obvious to me that 5 and 6, that they were using really poorly constructed sets. And I think that like the one thing about all of Wes's films, even Scream 4, is they feel like they take place in the real world. And like the whole, there's a setting that's like, maybe not Scream 4, but like at least the first three, they feel the settings feel very detailed and like immersive in a way. And like memorable, Windsor College, John Middleton's mansion. Obviously, Woodsboro in the first movie is so iconic for so many reasons. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they're not going back to Woodsboro because I just like we've been there so many times already. But I hear what you're saying in terms of like this suburban setting. I don't particularly find suburban settings to be all that interesting. I mean, like, it was something that like became a staple with like Halloween in 1978. But with like Wes Craven in the first movie, like what he did, I mean, obviously like Tatum's house is in a very suburban area. I was actually right across the street from where Hitchcock shot Shadow of a Doubt. But the intention of just like the locations that he picked, specifically for Stu's house and Casey's house and Sydney's house, we wanted to kind of go to more ruralized areas within Sonoma and capture that isolated feel that I was talking about earlier. And I'm not getting that from here. Like I just find like Sydney's house is just like, it looks so run of the mill. Like it just like looks like any house that you would see down the street. I am fine with them being in like a more suburban area or rural area, but I would have liked a little bit more isolation. I would have liked a little bit more characteristic with whatever architecture that they used. So like things like that, I really notice in movies. And that's why, I mentioned that scene earlier. And I think the reason why that scene in Scream 1 is sticking out in my mind so much is probably because of the Scream 7 trailer and just seeing how flaccid everything looks, for lack of a better term, and how it could look in just by tweaking a few artistic decisions. So, we're going to be in this neighborhood or this township or whatever it is. And, I see these scenes of Sydney running through the streets and there's not really anyone on these streets, but it's still like makes me think like, where's the threat? I mean, there's clearly people in this town. It like doesn't feel as scary when you know that she's in a place where there's like, around the corner. And I think, you added Scream 4 in there, but then you amended that real quick. And I think the problem with Scream 4 is that it does that. They're in like these suburban neighborhoods where houses are very close together. Even Kirby's house, which I think the intention was to make that seem like it was isolated far out of town. I see that and it's like, I can tell there's houses everywhere around there. So it's just like they weren't able to capture that same feeling. And, even if they can't do like aesthetically a new thing with it, I feel that trying to at least tap into the essence, what they got in the original would have been something that would have really benefited here. Because I feel like every time they do that, like have that mindset, let's go back to the original. They do that in like very superficial ways in terms of like fan service or like, look at this is just like in the original. And I feel like the thing that they're always missing out on is like they're not capturing the essence of the original. The essence is not necessarily something that is like physically tangible. It's just the idea of it. And I've not seen that in like any of the modern Scream movies.
So what did you think of Tatum and Isabel May from what we saw? Do you like her as Sydney's daughter? Again, I know we're just going off of, she has one line in the trailer, but what are your impressions?
Remind me of her line.
She says, I want to be a fighter like you. So clearly you don't give a shit about Scream 7, Zack Cherry.
No, I haven't seen the trailer in a while. I want to be a fighter. Like, see, that just makes me think back to like the Gus conversation in Scream 2 and how that was so profound. And now this just feels like, again, those superficial details. Like, I can't really make a judgment on the character yet because like I need to see more. Like, there's clearly I feel like they do show us a lot, but I don't get the sense of who she is, and that's something that I'm not going to know until like we see more trailers or I watch the movie.
Well, and from what I have gathered, she's kind of presented as like the innocent girl next door in the trailer, and that's not really her personality in the movie. So we still need to meet her properly, right? Obviously, and see the actual movie. But like for me, the scene at the end where, and see, this is the kind of scene that I actually think Zack Cherry would like and appreciate. And again, I know that this is just the trailer and we can only judge so much, but the idea of like Sydney being on the phone and Tatum is in the other location and under attack by Ghostface, and Sydney's watching through the camera and kind of telling her where to shoot the door or where to shoot him. That to me, I think is great character development. I think that like that is obviously a Kevin Williamson kind of a thing because we're pulling something new out of Sydney. Sydney is kind of surrendering. Like, she's so used to being the protector in certain ways, protecting her family.
Mm-hmm.
And Tatum is changing before our eyes. We're literally seeing her evolve right in front of our eyes. Without it, it's a lot of show, not tell from both of them. And I find it to be so fascinating. And I'm just really excited for that moment in particular, but also just kind of like what that moment says to me about their relationship and what the film could be dabbling in when it comes to Sydney and Tatum. So,
Yeah, like that felt very Jack Bauer to me, Kiefer Sutherland 24. Like it'll be interesting to see. The thing with the trailer is that it is so Sydney and Tatum heavy that, they do throw a lot of it, like it is mostly them. So I'm just I don't know what to expect. Like obviously these are not scenes that are all together in one block and they're occurring throughout the movie. So as I said, I'm interested to see Sydney's character as a mother this time, and certainly there's probably going to be this tightrope that she walks where she wants to be a mom and raise a normal kid, but also the fact that it's just like like there are people who are going to constantly be coming after me my entire life. I need to I'm not going to be there to protect my daughter all the time. Like she needs to figure this out for herself as well. So that'll be an interesting theme for her to grapple with.
all right, so last Scream 7 question for Zack Cherry today. It was revealed that Kevin Williamson, a WGA signed off, thumbs up writer on Scream 7, he is credited first above Guy Busick. So this means that he had a huge role in rewriting the original script because we know it was Guy Busick who wrote the first draft per Nev's Instagram post 2 years ago, the last time Zach and I recorded. So what are your thoughts on the fact that Kevin is writing, not only directing, but writing the first Scream movie in a long time?
Yeah, it's a good thing that Kevin Williamson is writing this. One of my trepidations initially was that it was the writers or half of the writers from 5 and 6 coming back and Kevin Williamson's involvement was going to be directing because it felt like he should be writing. So that is promising. Like I'm happy that he went in there and meddled because I've not been happy with what Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt have done with the franchise. I don't think that they have that electricity that Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven had for the rewrites that Wes did. So it's promising. It's a good thing. I'm happy to hear that. In terms of like Kevin's direction, I don't feel that like I've ever really seen Kevin's like full potential as a director because he hasn't directed a feature since the only one he's directed, which was Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which we know was like heavily messed with by the studio when that came out. So like it's not really fair to pass any sort of judgment onto him as a director. I think that he's clearly worked in the industry for a very long time, that he knows what he's doing. He's learned from the best, literally, with Wes Craven. My only fear with him as a director is that he has mostly worked in television, and that's why I think like is this going to have that sort of like flat television feel to it in terms of a movie? I'm in terms of the story, I feel like it's going to be an improvement. In terms of the direction of the film itself, I'm a little worried, but like I'm excited to see what he does. I think it's fair that he gets a shot to do it. And yeah, I think that there's nothing bad that can come from Kevin Williamson's name being on this picture.
Okay, cool. Let's talk before we go to this little cool topic I have to kind of close out the year of 2025. I wanted to talk to you about what you've been up to since you were last here. So again, we haven't collaborated really since, I think that like that episode premiered in March, but like we recorded that in like February of 24. So it's almost been 2 full years since we got to hang out. And honestly, it feels like no time has passed. Like I'm having such a great time with you. It just feels like old times. It just feels like, we recorded together last week in some respects.
Ditto. Yeah. Well, yeah. Starting in November of 2023, I started working on a script for a feature film with my friend Eric Champney. And that was kind of a project that had preoccupied a lot of my time. And we, got through a good chunk of it. And we realized, like, we really wanted to go the distance with this. So we thought that it might be a good idea, especially since I've never made a film before, that we attempt to make a short film version of at least the opening scene as sort of a proof of concept for what that would be. So this film that we've written, which is called Macabre, or Macabre, if you prefer, we started a Kickstarter campaign, and we were able to raise over $50,000 US,
Wow.
thanks in large part to a lot of my supporters from YouTube and Patreon, as well as friends of Eric's within the arts. And yeah, we were very busy with that. I think like that occurred in the summer of 2024. The next couple of months of like September and October, we were doing everything in pre-production. So just like all of that painstaking attention to detail and making sure that we were prepared for everything. We found a really neat location in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It's a museum that is part of a school called the Housatonic Museum of Art. And we ended up shooting there over 3 nights in November of last year. And yeah, this was my first experience with anything of this sort. And I mean, it was difficult. It was a challenge. I think there was a lot of elements that were working against us, but for the most part, everyone involved, really believed in the success of this and really wanted to make the film or just like get the vision that we wanted for it. And it wasn't easy. There was a lot of sleepless nights, especially surrounding that shoot. A lot of just trying to figure out the shot list and rework that because we had a ticking clock and not enough time. And, in the end, we got it all finished. We did end up going back in January to get some pickup shots, which were needed, but the post-production then followed, which was probably the most difficult thing of the entire process. It certainly was the most stressful thing I've ever endured in my life.
Really?
And yeah, I think that just by the very nature that Eric and I are very persnickety, we want the absolute best version of what something can be. And there were some issues that needed to be ironed out in terms of, certain elements of the movie, which required us to, go to studios for like post-production. And, we ended up spending a lot of our own money because there wasn't anything left of what we had. But at the end of the day, we got it finished. And I believe that was around May. And we're very happy with the way that it turned out. Obviously, if there are things that we're not happy about, and when I say not happy, just like things that we would have done differently, the fortunate part of that is that, if we go into making the feature, we now know that. So this was actually a great learning experience, just in terms of like what to expect, but how to be more efficient. And we've since put the film into festivals, and we've actually won a couple of awards. So I forget exactly which one. I think it was Atlanta Horror Fest. We won jury's choice for short film.
Nice.
It's obviously just a short film because it's the opening scene of a bigger picture. And then it was Buried Alive Film Fest. We won Best Directors. Very
Nice. Look at you.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
thank you. Yeah, very, very unexpected. And yeah, like it's kind of like fired us up again. Like we're continuing on with the script because that was something that happened. We had only written to a point and we put it aside to film this proof of concept. And now we're kind of going back in, and it's just been really great doing that. And obviously there's a lot of, we're wanting to make a movie, like I was explaining earlier, just in terms of homage and what we do, because we don't want to homage things or just like have fan service. Like, we're looking to tap into the essence of our favorite horror movies, and it's just like, what is the thing about them that makes them crackle? What is it that we respond to really well, and how can we infuse that energy into the story that we're telling? So there's a lot of everything in there. Yet, like, I would say there's not the short film, but just like what the feature film will be entirely. Like, I can guarantee there is Scream 2 in there, being my favorite of the Scream. There's certainly some Scream 3 in there as well, but more so just kind of like it's a send up of the giallo subgenre. So there's a lot of like Italian horror cinema. It's got a very 80s feel to it. So I'm really excited about that. That's kind of like, for me, like my goal moving forward, or just sort of like the next step of what I want to do creatively.
Well, can I just say, I am so proud of you and Eric. That is so awesome. Like, I didn't know that you won the Best Director prize. Oh my God, that is so cool. And just like, it's such an achievement. And I remember hearing a lot about your script and your ideas along the way to, you filming this past year. And I think that you guys really took the right approach. I'm so happy to see that all the hard work and all the collaboration that you guys did paid off, and you guys are having success in creative fulfillment, and that it's moving in the direction of making it into a full-length feature. Do you know that people send me, like, longtime listeners of the show who know like how much you used to be on the show? I mean, like, you've probably been on the show more than, like, I would probably say more than, you're probably in the top, you're easily in the top 10 of people who have had the most frequent guest appearances. I would assume you've been on a lot, like probably more than any other content creator out there, if that makes sense. Like, other person who has their own space that's not just on here. So I think that's really cool. And do you know that people along the way of your macabre journey, like when you're like all dressed up in like a fancy outfit, or you're like at a posing outside of like the macabre poster, or like you're on like a dais and like answering questions, people send me like screenshots of you, and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool, Zach's doing this. And I'm like, yeah, this is so awesome for him.
Yeah, we did go to Italy. That was, one of our festivals was there. So we were in Ferrara, and at the end of September. This is the first time I'd ever been to Italy. Actually, it's the first time I'd ever been to Europe,
Nice.
surprisingly. But oh my God, it was just like amazing being there. So yeah, that was a thing. There was definitely some dressing up and like photos and stuff and interviews and whatnot. Unfortunately, like we were, one of my favorite horror directors, Dario Argento, was supposed to be there, and he was unable to attend due to an illness. So we missed him, which was one of the main reasons that we went. Yeah, it was just like, it was such a trip. And yeah, and I appreciate that you had me on here as many times as you have, and that there are people who are cheering on the making of this film. Like, that means a lot to me.
I did not know about the Best Director prize. That's so sinking cool. Oh my God. But no, I'm proud of you, and I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see what comes from it. And I hope that everything you want to come from this journey comes. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
And I would appreciate if you would make more time for Scream with Rancy showers along the way. I mean, if you can, in your busy macabre schedule.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, so Zach, I have a question for you before we go into this little mini topic I have for us.
Sure.
So, you just described a huge change in your journey from what you had been doing, which is like kind of being a horror content creator on YouTube and whatever else. You have your YouTube show, you have the Cherry Picker podcast, and you wrote a script and you made a short film over the past few years, and that's been something completely different. So I'd love to know how have you changed really in the past 2 years since you've kind of last been on this podcast, and like how are you different as an artist, as a content creator, as a thinker in the horror world today compared to, say, our last episode before we heard about Nev and Kevin?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I'm 40 now. That's a new development, and I think that with that, as you get older, you certainly develop new sensibilities, and your temperament changes towards a lot of things. And I think that I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't want to say that I don't give a shit, because I will always give a shit, but there are certain things that I give less of a shit about. And I think, like, as you know, because you have many, and I certainly have a lot of them as well. There are haters out there, and I think at this point, I actually really appreciate them because they motivate me so much. Like, I get so much, just like it gives me a reason to kind of double down and just like think like, no, 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 like you're doing good. Like this is the thing. Like it's just like you are inciting debate. You're inciting conversation, and it just that understanding to know that people are going to be angry, but it's just sort of like having that realization that I look at criticism that I see online, like I'm getting tons of it right now for, like the completely unrelated thing. And it's just like the way people are, like that when, you deal with anything online that's just sort of like criticism or people who are angry at you, like I try to relate to it. I try to understand like what could I be so angry about in my life that would cause me to act that way online or just like speak to someone online in a way like that. And I don't know that there is. I don't know if there's really anything that I'm that indignant about. I've always kind of, or at least like in the past 5 years, taught myself getting to that point of just being upset with something, or I just see something online that like triggers me, and the I'll process that initially like how I do, but then I stop and I think like, how does this relate to myself? What
Yeah.
is it internally that is bothering me about this? That is like this has something to do with me, and like 9 out of 10 times that's what it is. And I think that I can now like reflect on that and look at the things that I see and just sort of the hate, and especially like in terms of like any success that I might have, or if I'm doing well, and I just look at it and I'm just like, I don't believe your indignation. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel that you look at this and that you're actually angry about this particular thing. I just feel like there's something deeper involved in this. Like as long as you're not an awful person and are doing bad things to other people, that there's really no reason for people to feel that way. So that's why I just look at anything like that now, and I just feel like, okay, this is just more of a reaction to wherever I am or what it is, or just like how people reflect on what I'm doing and things that are like, generally none of someone's business. So I just, allow that to empower me and just motivate me to do what I want to do.
Well, that wasn't the answer I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, because like the thing is, like the show that you used to be on, the person you used to know in me, I'm a completely different person than I was 2 years ago. And it's kind of crazy. There has been, like you alluded to, like the hate for Ryan C. Showers and for supporting Scream 7 and Nev Campbell, that it was unlike anything, and unlike anything I ever signed up for, anything that I expected, because of the volume and the intensity and the persistence by the Melissa folk, and the misplaced anger, like you were explaining. I don't know if I have any. So I'm 30 now. So you're 40, I'm 30. I'm 30 now. Thank you. Happy birthday too.
Thanks.
So, I don't know if I have a greater understanding of how that all went down. And I don't know if I care to continue to investigate it. I hope that it continues to kind of fade. But like in terms of like me and my show, I have definitely changed a lot. I think that like my tone about the Scream films is vastly different from how I used to talk about it back when you were on more. I think back then I was a bit more forgiving, a bit more bright-eyed about certain obvious flaws, and kind of like, my attitude back then was more so like, oh, everybody, let's get along, let's give, equal weight to everything, and everybody, let's all share our feelings. And like now I'm kind of like, I kind of have that don't give a shit attitude. I'm kind of brutal about certain things, and I'm not afraid to allow people to really express some honesty about things. And I think that I think it's a good thing. And I feel so much more confident being able to live in this space. And maybe it was a loss of purity that along the way with the Melissa of it all. But it's just kind of like, because there are people, who actively really think Scream 5 and 6 are bad piece of shit movies and that really betray Scream in a lot of ways. And I guess before I was kind of doing that thing that you and I were criticizing at the beginning of the show, which was, oh, let's keep it positive. Let's keep and I'm not like that anymore. And I think it's made me a better Scream person. I think it's made me a better content creator and just kind of my show different in a way and focused and more honest and smarter. And I don't really care if people are upset by that because I am who I am,
Yeah. No, I've noticed that for sure. I think like back in the earlier days, you were certainly more forgiving of things and, try to justify them. And, you and I are both instigators. Absolutely. Like we will poke and prod at certain things. And I mean, for me, like, it's just, I like to give back the same energy that I get. So that's why I might do it. But it's again with just sort of where I want to be psychologically with anything to do with that. It's just like, I don't need to be right in the eyes of someone else. All I can do as a content creator or a filmmaker or just someone who puts their opinion out there for other people to listen is offer that and know that that's what I'm giving. And if people don't want to agree with that or accept it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't go after people on a personal level. It's just like that to me is cringe, as they say.
They say it's cringe, but they are the ones who do the personal thing. Like, it's also exhausting. I don't really feel like I'm performing for anybody. I think I'm doing me, and that's great.
Yeah.
But Zack Cherry, I heard that you're a misogynist because you don't like Amber, and that's a fact. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's yeah. My favorite was it was a couple of months ago because it was amidst that whole scandal. I won't call it a scandal, but when Alison Brie and Dave Franco basically said what how we feel,
What
it's just
everyone's
like
thinking, yeah.
we just like we don't like Screams 5 and 6, like the core 4, but like we're the original 3. And then there's just like a lot of comments just like being like, she's a racist and blah, blah, blah. And like, this is me, this is the instigator in me, or just, but not even like an instigator, but just sort of like a voice of just sort of like logic and, wanting to be like, oh, maybe like, is there another perspective to that we haven't looked at yet? And there was one comment in particular that like, pulled out the race card. And I had to ask them legitimately is like, thinking about the core 4 and just them being POC. And it's just like, is that all they are to you? Are there no other defining characteristics about these characters that resonates in terms of like the material or anything, like because if that's all they are, like that sort of like highlights how insignificant their impact is on the material. Like I absolutely am all for the idea of like inclusivity. It's like there are characters that have been around in like shows from like 30 years back where people have been like, that's the first time I've ever seen someone who looks like me on TV. And that is important. That means a lot to people. But to like pull it that way and just say like, this is all they are. Like, I just feel like that's so shallow and that there's more depth that we can try to mine from, like these things that we love to talk about and look at them. So I just feel like it's very reductive to boil it all down to just like one aspect of a character that just sort of like has to do with race and nothing else.
Well, your tweets were very popular. Again, I loved them. I retweeted every single one. And I actually read many of your tweets on the Alison Brie episode. I did an Alison Brie episode. I love doing that episode because it's so juicy and it's so honest. And it's just like, oh, wow. Where everyone's starting to see, well, what we've been talking about Scream 5 and 6. It's coming out into the mainstream and people aren't afraid to say these things anymore. And that was a really fun week. But everything that you said was amazing. Everyone go listen to that episode of mine. It was I came out on August 15th, I believe. So, but yeah.
I just want people to embrace nuance in criticism and conversation and yeah, just like fans that don't do that are usually the fans that, aren't my people, the ones that I want to interact with and they're the ones that I find to be the most problematic.
Or have around. If you being a fan of me means I have to, be a certain way, then you're not a fan of me. You're a fan of you and your idea.
Yeah.
But so, Zach, just to wrap up the year of 2025, it's been 25 years since the year 2000. But so the year 2000 was the year that Scream 3 came out. And we celebrated its 25th anniversary earlier this February in a big, epic way that Ryan C. Showers would for his favorite movie. It's fun to look at this year because there are so many movies I've thought about this year where I wish I could do an episode covering them just because this was a good year for horror movies. And I just kind of wanted to draw attention to a couple of those titles here as we close out the year, because not only it was it the year of Scream 3, but it was the year of some other really famous, well-accomplished horror films that year. So, Zach, you want to chat about it with me?
Please, yeah, I've been waiting for it.
All right. So
I mean, I feel like I've been delaying it with how loquacious I've been, but yeah, I'm ready.
Hey, I mean, this is a Scream podcast. We're allowed to talk about all things Scream. So first, I want to talk about a movie that we both love, which is What Lies Beneath with Michelle Pfeiffer. Tell me what your thoughts are on What Lies Beneath.
So What Lies Beneath to me has always just been just a great, it's a nice mix of psychological thriller and ghost story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very unfortunate that at the time of its release that the marketing material was what it was, because the first act of that movie is misdirection, complete misdirection. And this is about 45 minutes. And the trailer just sort of glosses over and just gets to no, this is what the movie actually is. So don't, watch the trailer if you can help it. But what's so great about it is it's sort of like a callback to a lot of the Hitchcock days of thrillers like that, and just women's pictures as well of Michelle Pfeiffer is just starring as this housewife who has this past, or there's something happened to her, and it's sort of rebuilding this mystery, or just sort of from her memory, which also feels very giallo to me. So another reason I love it. But I think that what was so special about it at the time, when digital and visual effects were really kind of coming into the forefront of filmmaking, is that it allowed Robert Zemeckis, the director, to implement a lot of ideas that Hitchcock had always had with his filmmaking, just in terms of specific shots that he wanted to achieve that he couldn't because of the limitations at the time. So there's a lot of really interesting cinematography throughout this movie that is achieved through digital effects that looks great. It still holds up really well. But, this is another movie that just has a very specific signature style and look to it that, you see a still frame from it, you know exactly what movie it is. And, there's a lot of motifs that run throughout it. And, I think very memorable quotes too, especially from Michelle Pfeiffer. But I think at the heart of it is Michelle Pfeiffer, who is probably my favorite contemporary, well, I say contemporary, she's been around for a while, but just still around actor, hands down. There's just something so magnetic about her. She's so alluring. That voice, she's stunning. Just I love her performances and everything. And she's always playing different. She has range. This is one, this is my favorite movie of 2000. I'm sorry, Scream 3.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was gonna at the end, I was gonna say, oh, what would we pick for the for the Oscar for best horror film? And I was obviously gonna pick Scream 3, but the idea of that question was gonna be besides Scream 3, what would our pick here be? I would have picked this as well after Scream 3. So, but no, Michelle Pfeiffer's work here is truly outstanding. I think this is probably one of her most underrated performances. I would probably put it in my top 5 Michelle Pfeiffer roles. I think it's such an interesting character. She gets to drive this movie in a way that she doesn't get to drive so many films. I don't know. It's such a, like you said, it's such a unique movie, a unique performance from her. And you mentioned her range, from role to role. Even within this role, because she gets to be kind of possessed, right? There's so many different dimensions to her, and just kind of learning these things about the mystery, but also her husband. I actually did not like What Lies Beneath when I first watched it. I thought it was really boring until the end. And when I rewatched it a couple of years later after I grew up, I was like, wow, this is masterful. If there is an element of slow burn to it, it's well thought through by Robert Zemeckis in the visual language of the beginning that kind of informs where the movie's going at the end. For instance, the very first scene, we see the hair dryer, it just focuses on her grabbing that. It's just interesting. But it is so well constructed as a horror movie, thriller, ghost movie, as you described. The direction is so crisp and on point. I love What Lies Beneath. I think it's a really terrific movie, and I hope people continue to revisit it because it's a great one.
Isn't that so funny how like the movies that we watched from yesteryear that we might have hated at the time we discover are actually really great because they have so much rewatchability.
Yeah.
I've always loved this movie, so I can't speak to your experience, but there are movies that I've hated that I've reevaluated.
And it wasn't that I disliked the movie. I thought that the craft was always great, but there was just maybe I was just like young and stupid. Just over the years, I've grown to love this movie more and more. I agree with you about the cinematography. It's my favorite element of the film besides Michelle Pfeiffer's performance and her character overall. So yeah. So next up, let's talk about American Psycho, which is I think some people kind of forget that American Psycho is a horror film. A lot of people don't really see people talking about it as a horror, but it is obviously. So what are your thoughts on American Psycho starring Christian Bale?
It's horror adjacent for sure. It's like not straight up horror, but I mean like people could say What Lies Beneath isn't horror either. So I saw American Psycho in the theater when it came out. Had to sneak in because I was 14, 15 at the time. So a friend and I had done that because this was like, because I'm in Canada, is rated R, which I think is the equivalent of your guys' NC-17. And I just remember like, I never really appreciated it for what it was at the time, because it was more of just sort of like the rebellion of going to see it rather than the film itself. Because it was, all I knew about it is like, this is based on a controversial book that your parents don't want you to read, or the movie that they don't want you to see, or the movie that like the government doesn't want you to see, or like the film ministry, or all that stuff. It's just like, this is off limits to anyone who is a minor. And when someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, I'm going to go do this. So all I remember really from that experience was sitting there, and it was during the sex scene with the two prostitutes, where everything is just so like illuminated, completely white. There's just like in this white room and everything's bright. And that's when the film usher came in, when I'm sure they still have them, but more so back in the year 2000, and just like sinking down in my chair because I'm like, I don't want to get caught. Like, I'm just probably so illuminated right now by the screen. But it was a movie that like, I just sort of, I don't think, not that I didn't like it, but it was just like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it wasn't what I expected. I guess I was just, by the way that it was hyped up in terms of this being so taboo, I didn't get out of it what I was meant to. And, I'd revisited it many times over the years. And I think the last time I watched it was maybe a couple of years ago. But I do find it's not my favorite, but there's a lot in it that, like psychologically, I think it's just sort of like the mind fuckery of it all, and just sort of like applying different meanings to it, or just sort of like what really is happening and who is Patrick Bateman in all of this. So it's like for reasons like that I really enjoy it. But I think that, maybe why it's not higher up there for me is just because it is sort of like a series of vignettes of just like random things that are going on that are like sort of like loosely strung together, which like makes sense by the end when it's, like what is real and what isn't. But I like, more of a What Lies Beneath. Like I like a slow burn of a story that can really develop itself and then get sort of like entangled in this web of mystery through like a through line that just feels more pointed.
No, so, I respect that. And again, weirdly enough, I did not like American Psycho when I first watched it. I think I watched it too young to really understand the filmmaking. And so it was directed by a woman named Mary Herron. And I think that like having a female director, sometimes like people will present the question like, what is the difference between having a male director versus a female director? And I think that like, imagine American Psycho in the hands of a male director versus the movie we get here. I think that like that should tell you everything you need to know. I think that this movie does perspective so well. Perspective on Patrick Bateman within his perspective, but also the objective perspective of how insane this guy is. I think the filmmaking is top notch, and the acting, this is my favorite Christian Bale performance. He's probably one of my top 3 favorite actors. I think he is such an amazing like artist. And he's been in so many movies over the years, like especially during like my Oscar years that I loved. And yet this I think is just on another level because this was Christian Bale before he was Christian Bale. So, I think the violence, it hits different. There's something visceral about this movie and the impact of this character that really stays with me. And I think that I think it's a great movie. So I'm definitely probably more of a fan than you are by the sounds of it. But I think that I would put it next to, I would go of the list so far, Scream 3, What Lies Beneath, American Psycho. But I think, they're all pretty great.
I mean, I would give it a letterboxed 4 out of 5.
Okay, cool.
Really getting into it, yeah.
4.5 for me. What about What Lies Beneath? Because you don't rate
maybe that would be
things
5, yeah.
You don't rate things on Letterboxd anymore.
Well, if it's a 5, I'll rate it a 5. But because it's sometimes it's so arbitrary. But maybe I would give What Lies Beneath 5. Maybe that's a 5 for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would go 4.5 for What Lies Beneath. I guess I'll go with 4 for American Psycho too. So
Yeah.
Scream 3 gets 5 out of 5. Okay, next, let's talk about a movie called Final Destination. I listened to your Final Destination review, actually, because I did my own audio commentary of Final Destination, and I actually wanted to hear what you had to say and what Eddie had to say. I had listened to it back when you guys did it originally, but this past May when I was doing my audio commentary, I listened to what you guys had to say just to keep it fresh in my head.
I don't even remember what that conversation was of that episode of my podcast, but I don't think I've watched it since then. Final Destination is a movie that, I really loved it when it came out. It was probably in my top 10 at the time. Revisiting it now, I think it loses something for me. I don't know what it is. I pacing wise, somewhere in the second act and just sort of where it hits at the end. It's just it's not boring. I don't think the movie is ever boring, but there is a lull that I feel, and it's almost like the runtime could have been shorter, or I think maybe they could have leaned more into the set pieces. This is a franchise I feel works best when it is kind of going off the rails, no pun intended, of just sort of being completely engrossed in these spectacular death scenes that just the Rube Goldberg style kills and all that. And they're certainly there in the first one, but it's a little more understated from where the film goes on, or the franchise goes on to. So I don't know, it's a franchise that I enjoy, but it's not one that I live and die by, if that makes sense to you. I've seen all of them. I saw the 6th one in the theater. I haven't seen it again since then. I don't own it yet, and that's not to say that I wouldn't own it. I absolutely watch them over and over, but I don't have that same reverence for them like I do for the Scream franchise, or Halloween, or other properties like that.
In terms of the original, because I really did a deep dive. It was the second audio commentary that I did, so I was really trying to be over prepared back when I started doing audio commentaries for the podcast. So I watched it probably 4 times before I did the performance of the audio commentary. And I don't know. When I first saw this back, when I was younger, I thought that it was pretty great. Again, not the reverence that I have for other franchises like you, Halloween, Scream, but I respected it a lot and I thought it was awesome. Watching it now, I think the first act is spectacular. I think it's terrific. And then it's Act 2 is worse than Act 1, and then Act 3 is worse than Act 2. I don't think that they land the plane, ironically, well here with the finale and the arc of the film. So in retrospect, I'm more mixed on Final Destination in 25 years in than I am of any film on the list so far. The question is, do I give it 3 or 3.5 out of 5? I'm going to go 3, to be honest. I'm not in a generous mood with it. And Bloodlines did not leave me so thrilled. I didn't love Bloodlines. I think that it suffers from a lot of Guy Busick bullshit, and I don't know, it's one of my least favorite Final Destination films, if I'm being honest.
I think the 4th one would be my least favorite. This story for Final Destination was initially a spec script for an X-Files episode that was written by Jeffrey Reddick, and I think maybe even thinking of it from that perspective, it might have been excellent. It might have been a top tier 40-minute episode of television, and it's just maybe that, stretching it out into a film is, where you kind of get that the lulls, and why it's sort of it doesn't stick to the landing of how great it starts out. But having said that, I appreciate the concept so much, and I love that it's kind of gone on to be a franchise, because it's still to me it's sort of that candy horror movie where just like you just go and you know exactly what you're getting out of it. I don't need anything more than what it is. So, for that I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. I can definitely tell where the X-Files script stops and the newly added material begins in the screenplay, and that's a problem. So, but no, I mean, I like the franchise. I like the first film. I'm not feeling super warm to it today. I'm going a 3 out of 5. So, sorry. How about you?
It's generous 3.5.
Okay, you know what? You've convinced me. You twisted my arm. 3.5 for Ryan C. Showers, because that's what I did back in May. Yeah. Anyways. All right. And last one is kind of a poetic way to kind of end our time together here tonight, Zach, is I know this isn't technically a horror movie, but like it still came out in the year 2000. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, which is Scary Movie, which we are ironically getting a sequel to, a legacy sequel a couple of months after Scream 7. And it's so deeply intertwined with Scream because it's literally a parody of Scream. So what are your thoughts on Scary Movie?
It's been a while since I've watched Scary Movie, actually. It's not one that I revisit a whole lot. I think for me, Scary Movie, even as a franchise, is just sort of like a collection of clips in my mind that I play on repeat, or just like moments or quotes or things like that. It's almost like an episode of Family Guy where there is no narrative, so to speak. It's more just like a collection of non sequiturs and jokes and stuff like that, which is not really like in my wheelhouse, but I really enjoyed Scary Movie at the time. I'm very much looking forward to Scary Movie 6. I love Anna Faris and help me out, Brenda actress.
Regina Hall.
Thank you. And like I'm looking forward to seeing them again. I'm glad that the Weans are back in and they've got control after, being kind of pushed out after Scary Movie 2. But yeah, I think just because it is, again, it's like that idea of just like it's homaging things on such a superficial level that I only get so much out of that. That for me, like the true heart of it is the performances and the jokes and the comedy.
Do you, as a Scream person, have a beef with Scary Movie about the way that it kind of skewers Scream? Do you take it in good fun? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, not at all. I think it's great. I love that it exists. I love that it, came out at the time. And like I said, it's almost like you hear about kids that go see like Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's like, oh my God, like that, they did that. Like something that I would never understand. That was me going to see Scary Movie when that came out. Cause it's just like, oh, it's like, even if it wasn't even intentionally funny, it's like they did the shot the same way, or like it was the same movement, or the actor doing the same thing or reading the same line. No, I've never felt it as a dig towards Scream. I think it's, more of a love letter, if anything.
So, I did not like Scary Movie when I was growing up because I was so protective of Scream. And a lot of people, whenever I was like my generation was, or my class, people I went to school with, was watching Scary Movie, kind of saw it as like, oh, look how dumb they make Scream look. So I was always defensive. Shocking, right? Ryan C. Showers is defensive. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of embraced it as part of the Scream legacy. I think it's fun to kind of see Scream in a different way and just see the same story beats and the same characters in this parody. And it's like I'm still with Scream. I'm still in the vibe of the original 2 films, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, even though I'm not, right? So
yeah.
It's all in good fun, and I can find the humor in it today. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Can I just say, because there are other 2000s horror movies,
Please.
we don't have to get into them, but I'm Hollow Man.
Yeah.
Which I don't think you've ever seen, because I
No.
asked you about it earlier. I enjoy that movie so much. Like it's just so much fun. It's Paul Verhoeven, so this is the director of Basic Instinct, Total Recall, Showgirls, Starship Troopers, like all that crazy stuff. So that is a movie that I've always like. I wouldn't say it's good by any stretch of the imagination, but it's fun and rewatchable. So that, to me, that's something that's like I think I'm more tapped into, or like my version of like what a 5-star movie is something that I could watch over and want to watch over many times. So that's one. I'm not to say that I would give Hollow Man 5 stars, but I know you weren't going to mention it. And the other one that I actually watched recently, and I watched it like 3 times in a row because we covered it on the podcast, and I wanted to hear like the commentary and all that. And this really surprised me, was Urban Legends 2,
Okay.
which is
I figured you were going to bring it up, so I'm glad you did.
which is not a good movie. Like the execution is terrible, but the concept is actually like I really enjoy it, and I think that kind of like lures me into it. Like I'm able to kind of like focus on that whenever I watch it. Definitely like a step down from what the original Urban Legends was, but that's one that I kind of like low key enjoy a little bit.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad. I don't enjoy it. I think I gave it like 2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I have only seen it the one time,
Yeah.
but I think that you're right about the concept. So clearly, I will need to revisit this movie at some point over the years. But I want to mention one more. So as you were building up your speech, I was going to make a joke because we're in the year 2000. This is a Scream podcast. So let's bring up a Dimension release.
Please do. I think I know where you're going.
So when you were building up Urban Legends 2, you were like describing hype. I watched it 3 times. I was like, Dracula 2000.
Yeah.
So yeah, Patrick Lussier, the famous editor of the Scream trilogy. This was his first directed film. And it's what are your thoughts?
I have not watched Wes Craven's Presents Dracula 2000 in a long time.
Yeah.
I want to watch it again. I actually was about to ask you about it, so that's just really funny. It's definitely one that I remember feeling disappointed with. I know there was a lot of Wes Craven Presents movies in that time because I guess he was just kind of moving more into a producerial role in the 2000s, which, totally respectable. I want to say, like, I'm visually, was it striking? I don't, like, I have to watch it again, but, like, my thinking back to it, I do remember the look of it, I think, which might be a boon to the movie.
I've only seen it, like, twice.
Yeah.
Once, like, way whenever, like, I was first getting into Scream, and then once, like, during, like, the Scream 5 and 6 era, just to freshen up. And it was not good, but now that you say that it is visually striking, but the story and the execution is not great. I can see Patrick Lussier trying with this movie. I think that he really wants to be a successful storyteller, but this just wasn't the story. But I do remember the production kind of being nice looking, rich looking. So yeah, it's too bad that it didn't work out.
Yeah, it's not a good script. And I'm just actually looking up like who wrote it because I don't think that it was Wes or Patrick. The thing with like Patrick is a brilliant editor, and editing is storytelling in and of itself. And I listened to the commentaries for the Scream movies quite a bit. So the ones for 2 and 3 are recorded by Wes, Marianne, Madalena, and Patrick, and it's interesting because they talk about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to be working on Dracula 2000 next," and so it's just like it's interesting going back to like when those were recorded in 1999 and hearing about that and how much promise there was at the time. And I did see another Patrick Lussier directed movie more recently, and I say more recently, it's probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I think it was called like Trick or me. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't great. It was just like this. Actually, Jamie Kennedy had a role in it, but it was a movie that just went on too long. There was so much exposition. I didn't know what was going on with it. I don't remember if that was anything like Dracula 2000. Dracula 2000 probably felt much more quicker paced. Like I'm saying that's an hour and 39 minutes, but I don't know. Like that's the thing. I am intrigued to watch it again, but there are some movies that I say that like I haven't seen in a while. Like a good example of that is Jason Goes to Hell, because I never remember what the fuck that movie is about. And I'm always like, I should watch it again. And then I put it on and we're like 45 minutes in and I'm like, God, why did I commit myself to this? So there's some movies like that, but then there's some that I watch again that I'm like, I kind of low-key enjoy this. So maybe Dracula 2000 would be one of them.
Well, I don't think it would. I think it would be a Jason Goes to Hell. But it's, it's hard to deny like the star power in this movie. I forgot the names in this. So you have Gerard Butler, who is Dracula, which I forgot. I remember him now in the movie. I remember him liking him for the most part, or thinking he does okay. So Oscar winner Christopher Plummer is in here. Nathan Fillion was in this. Crazy. So I guess that's the dimension of it all, bringing in the hot stars.
Wow. Yeah.
Fun little discussion here. So you would give the Oscar to What Lies Beneath. I would give it to Scream 3, but What Lies Beneath would be my second choice.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, Zack Cherry, please tell everybody where they can find you online.
Main YouTube channel is Zack Cherry, Zack space Cherry. I've also got The Cherry Picker, which is on YouTube or streaming wherever podcasts are streamable. Instagram is at Retro Bitchface, all one word, and that is also the handle for my Letterboxd. And then Twitter, Zack Cherry.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you back, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about Scream 7 after we get to see it in 2-3 months.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I can't wait to come back and chat with you about that.
Awesome.
Wait, well, you didn't tell me where is it ranked for you in terms
my
of like
predicting.
where. Yeah.
I think I've come to the conclusion that it's not going to break into the original trilogy. I think it'd have to be really, really special. I mean, it could, but I don't think so. It's because I love each of those movies, each of those first 3 movies so deeply, so passionately. I'm going to guess above Scream 4. That's my conservative prediction. If it falls below Scream 4 in between 4 and 5, then I think it would be, I would call it underwhelming. You're like,
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that. And I'm like, it would be underwhelming. I think like, I just don't see it beating Scream 3 for me. You know, yeah, no. I think it's going to be after the original
Okay.
trilogy.
We'll talk about it more then.
Yeah.
We'll
So-
see if our predictions were right.
I knew you were going to hate that question. I was like, he's going to hate answering this, but I'm going to ask anyway.
I didn't hate it. It's like I'm just confused about like I don't know how to frame that in my mind in a way that I could answer it authentically. But I found a way, so we're good.
You found a way. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, Zach, thank you so much again for coming, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's segment. The last Taylor Swift segment of 2025 is December 30th. Thank you for joining me for the last episode of 2025 of this podcast. It's kind of a crazy thing to be sitting here because now, after, 2 days from now, we're going to be in the year of Scream 7. It's been a long road to get here. And it's been a long road to have Sydney back. It's been a long road for fans. It's just been a weird time. And now we're like officially like on the other side of any kind of bad vibes with Scream. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have gone through this experience, and I can't wait to see what's on the other side of the horizon with this movie. So to join me here to celebrate the end of one year and the beginning of a new year, please welcome my friend Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hello, Ryan. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
So Ashley, please tell everybody, what is the Taylor Swift song of the day?
The Taylor Swift song of the day, very fitting, is New Year's Day. This song was came out on Reputation in 2017. It's track 15, the very last track of Reputation, which I think is extremely fitting. It is written and produced by Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff. There's no re-record of this because Reputation didn't get one. And to me, when I listen to the song, I think it's about being in love and not wanting to lose that love. And this is one of my favorite love songs of all time. I love it so much. I think some of the little messages Taylor incorporates throughout are a beautiful way of describing loving someone. And I think it can be like, I think this is more of like a romantic love, but there are aspects that I think you could take into like a friendship, that kind of love. And I adore this song.
It's the quintessential New Year's song, in my opinion. First of all, I'm a sucker for a piano ballad. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like, in some ways, you could look at the song and think it's very simple and plain Jane. But the thing that I think is so beautiful about it is the way she layers the song and layers the different versions of the chorus and different versions of like the phrases, and like the repetition of them. And that's what makes it like really impactful, I think. But I also just love the message of the song. Like, I don't know, with this song, I feel like it's both something I listen to when I'm sad and pensive and thoughtful, but then also a song I listen to whenever I'm like feeling a little bit warm towards somebody, or like there's like a hope in my reflection about somebody. It does both of those things. Is that crazy?
No, I think that is exactly kind of the New Year's Day of it all is such a great way of describing it, because New Year's Eve is like all this like fun and craziness, and then New Year's Day, depending on how much fun you had the day before, can be kind of boring, or sometimes it's a little bit slow, it can be a little melancholy. There's this duality of that day of the times changing and a new beginning, but also like looking back at what happened the previous year. And I think that's kind of what she's describing. I think New Year's Day is like a perfect way of describing a relationship and not wanting it to change, but wanting it to also evolve and grow with you.
Yeah. Well, and isn't there like I think also part of this message of the song, the night before it's a big celebration, there's parties, there's spectacle, and then the next day you're kind of cleaning up the mess and like it's not necessarily only about the great parts of a relationship or great parts of something or the happy parts of something. It's also about the necessary parts of a relationship, which, that's just true to life. So I really, really like that. Like the one of the big lines in the song is like, what is it? I want your midnights, but I'll be cleaning up bottles with you on New Year's Day. I just think that's so pretty. And also just like, again, very true to like a real, what partnership is actually like out there. It's not just the romance. It's not just like the passionate love story. It's, the quiet moments of just like having to, do work for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, and I think it's like a really nice metaphor of saying like, I want to be there when times are really beautiful and times are fun and we're having a blast. But I also want to be with you in the mundane and the boring and the sometimes frivolous and gross and whatever it is. And she talks about like, I'll be there when you're the toast of the town and like when you come, I can't remember exactly, but when you come stumbling home.
Or if you strike
And
out
it's
and are
just
calling home.
strike out. Yes, exactly. And it's just the way of saying like, no matter where you are or what happens in your life, I want to be with you when it happens. And I just think that's such a beautiful way of describing when you really love somebody is loving them for all the things that they might go through in the future.
Yeah. And, I have to say, like, this is like, I don't want to be like the most ridiculous person in the world, but I'm going to be. That lie, I'll be there if you're the toast of the town, babe, or if you strike out and are calling home. I feel like that is me with Scream, just because, like, within like the world of this podcast, I've been with Scream at the highs and the lows, and I've never really deviated from it. Like, I just love Scream so much. Like, in some ways, I'm in a relationship with Scream 3. We've been going strong for 15 years. Not yet married, but someday soon. So I don't know. There's so many beautiful lines in this song, and one of which is, please don't ever become a stranger whose laugh I could recognize anywhere. So, Ash, what are your thoughts on that line?
I care who Taylor's dating in like the fun sense of things. But it's never like really impacted the way I feel about a song. I can usually relate it to something else. Like, sometimes I'll know what the song might be about. But the first time I listened to this after realizing that who she wrote it about, she wasn't with anymore,
Yeah.
it honestly like it felt
Hurt.
like a knife to my stomach in a way of just being like, gosh, like that happened to her. And I was thinking about friends who like you just kind of grow apart with and how sometimes like that's not even anything bad happens, but if you heard their laugh from across the room, you would know exactly who it is. And it is that kind of it's a really beautiful way of saying like I'm going to miss you if for some reason we're not together. And it's just a really beautiful way of saying something so simple because if you do have one of those memories pop into your head or like you hear the person laugh or you smell their cologne or you see them walk by. When you're in heartbreak, it is one of the worst feelings in the entire world when like it's almost like you're on a roller coaster and like your stomach just drops and your heart's beating fast or whatever it is, just that feeling. And I feel like she like captured it so well of describing what heartbreak is like in this tiny little sentence or this tiny little verse. And I think it's one of the best things she's ever written. I like to miss someone's laugh is heartbreaking.
You're right. Like to me, like I don't even think of this as purely like romantic. I think I'm so glad that you mentioned friendships because, like, the idea of drifting apart from somebody, not even having a full on friendship breakup, but it could apply there too. But it's just the idea of like people who were once close and so well, and then like you drift apart, but yet you still think of certain things about them. Like so for instance, let's just say a friend likes a certain movie or an actor, and then you see years go by, you don't talk to that person, even bad blood or no bad blood, and then you see that actor in a new movie, and you think my friend insert name here I would really love this movie, right? And I definitely have that. And like so I'm somebody I get very attached to people in my life and I hate the idea of like abandonment or like parting of ways. And this line does kind of hit me deep because like I don't want people who I really love and care about to ever become strangers. And it's almost like I have a question for you. Do you feel like when she wrote that line, do you feel like she knew that Joe was not the one?
No.
I almost feel like, because we talk about like the anxiety of lover, and I've been wondering, do you think that like she had like subtle hints of the anxiety that we would see in the next album here? Like, I don't know.
No, I think like Reputation and the songs that she wrote about him are like the purest
Hmm.
form of love at the very beginning. And I think if there's any anxiety in the song, it's made up in her, it's just coming from her own experiences. But again, I am not her, so I do not know. But I have always thought of this as being like a love song of being like hoping, like, of just like, you never know, like, there should always be something in the back of your mind being like, I don't like, there's always a chance that things aren't gonna work out for whatever reason it is. But I really do think that this was, like, a song of optimism versus anxiety and, being concerned, but that also might just be how I look at it. Because
Well, and it may be how I look at it too, just being like the anxiety person who's always like, alert to make sure that no one's ever leaving me. So I don't know. But, here's like, so people at this point, you've listened to the final scream. I feel like, and maybe partly why I'm feeling this way is like based off of like what happens in the final scream. I feel like Sidney Prescott would say this to Mark Kincaid. And that's not a spoiler if you haven't listened to it. It's just like, but if you have listened to it, you'll be like, ah, yeah, that is right. Anyways, so okay. The last little line here I want to hit is hold on to the memories, they will hold on to you. And this is how she exits the song. It's repeated over and over and over. Ash, what are your thoughts on the memories here?
I love that line. It always like, I think you can make it hit, like, for so many different moments. For me, if I was gonna compare this to Scream, I would imagine this being Sydney singing it to like, talking to Gail, especially about the loss of Dewey, and the line especially, "You squeeze my hand 3 times in the back of the taxi," which I don't know if anybody else does this, but, like, it means, like, "I love you," to squeeze someone's hand 3 times, or, like, if you, like, say, like, 1, 2, 3 to somebody, that means, like, "I love you," because of the amount of letters in the word. But I always squeeze someone's hand 3 times before the song even came out, and I was like, "Oh my goodness," but I imagine Sydney and Gail, and, like, she's squeezing Gail's hand just to give her a little bit of, like, when, like, something, like, awkward is happening or something bad is happening and you squeeze someone's leg, and you're
Hmm.
like, "Oh my god, are you seeing this too?" It's like that connection that you have with someone, but when it's someone's hand, it's a little bit more, like, visceral, it's more like, "I've got you."
Yeah.
And that's what I imagine for this. But the memory hold on to the memories, they will hold on to you. I think we can all think of that for, like, our Scream love and all the things that mean so much to us, and this podcast and all of those things, and I love that line so much.
Yeah, and I was actually like really thinking about it this morning as I was listening to the songs. I was like, it's not just like it's hold on to the memories, one, right? But then they'll hold on to you. It's not even just like a selfish thing. It's almost like the memories, like you're gonna take them with you, of course, but they're also gonna keep you warm. They're going to make you feel comforted after a certain time passes, and I really love that. And as a very nostalgic person, I mean, like literally, this whole podcast is built on like, oh my gosh, I loved Scream in my childhood. And, it's just like the memories of things, they will be there for you, through the years, and they will make you look more fondly on a time, and I think it's so, so pretty. Happy end of 2025 and happy 2026.
I know, yes. I hope you and everybody listening has an amazing year.
Sounds good. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, "I'll be right back," because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!